rather than lift it up. So just a couple of tips there from me to you. Hopefully you are very safety conscious when it comes to securing your beach umbrella. If everybody were, there would be no need for a bill. So like I said, I kind of have to be on board with this one. It's scary. It's scary. Just watching these people trying to secure it sometimes are very scary. So I'm going to go on to the topic now. I did just say the word so. I've been very cognizant of trying to eliminate the word so since Marcy told me how much it bothers her. She said it was a pet peeve. She didn't mention me specifically. But I do use that word a lot, kind of as a transition word. And I remember when I was on the radio, my boss used to tell me the same thing. Stop saying it. Stop saying that. And I kind of liked it. But now I'm finding out maybe I just have to figure out a better way to transition. I was about to say, so do you sleep separately from your spouse? That is the topic we're talking about today. Wanted to hear from you. Ironically, I put this topic up and then Joe came home and told me how he wasn't feeling well, and I was afraid he has the coronavirus, that is. So he had answered, I am tonight, but only when one of us is sick. So, yeah, that's the way that's going to go. I'm going to make sure he stays in there for a couple of nights. I got to say, I love having the bed to myself. And it's not even a matter of sleeping. It's a matter of when I get into the bedroom, because he typically goes to bed before I do. Not much earlier, but usually like a half hour or an hour before I do. And I always read before I go to bed. And if I have my Kindle, it's not that much of a problem, but I just always worry that I'm disturbing him. You know, I come in, I put the dog on the bed, I use the bathroom real quick, and I snuggle into the bed, and I get my book out, and the TV's on, and I just am worried that I'm going to disturb him. He seems to be a pretty good sleeper for the most part. But then I just don't have to worry about it at all when he's not there. I'm just like, all right, I can just flop into bed. But I do have to tell you, when I took Tucker into the bedroom last night, Joe was in the guest room with the door closed. And, you know, as far as she knew, it was status quo. You know, he said goodnight like he always does. And I'm sure she was expecting to see him when I put her up on the bed last night. And she kind of looked at his spot like, huh, where is he? She got over it pretty quickly. She snuggled right up into the side of me so that I couldn't move. Even when Joe is not in the bed, I find myself on the edge of the bed in the middle of the night because Tucker is moving closer and closer, and I'm getting closer to the edge and closer to the edge. So, yeah, the king-size bed's still not big enough for myself and Tucker. Crazy. So Dawn says, no way would I sleep separately from my spouse. Diane says, never. Jim says, yes, we're divorced. Then that is not your spouse. But when I was married, I would only sleep separately when there was a kid in my spot or I was away. Mary says, only when we go to a hotel room with 2 queen-size beds. Yes, we do that too. We're always like, I often will request a king-size bed, but if we end up with the 2 queens, I'm like, oh, we get our own bed. Yay! Kathy says, we start sleeping together, but I leave usually in the middle of the night because he's snoring, but then he leaves from me snoring occasionally too. Marianne says, no way, I love his snoring. A lot of people say that after a long marriage, that when their spouse passes away, that they can't sleep because the snoring isn't there anymore. They've become so accustomed and they really miss it. It's very sad. Kathy says, no, but being on vacation and having separate beds this past week, I never slept so good, so maybe. Debbie just says my husband snores, so I'm not sure if that means she does sleep separately or not. Sandra says sometimes, and Michelle says nope. Yeah, once in a while, like I said, when there is a sickness going around, he usually moves into the guest room because the guest room does not have a television, and I am the one who prefers the television. You know, and that's one of the things, you know, aside from the snoring, maybe your spouse doesn't like the television being on and you don't like it on and you like it on all night. You shouldn't sleep with the television on all night. They say it's disruptive to your sleep, but you do you, obviously. I put it on the sleep timer, usually about an hour and a half. Sometimes if I'm not too terribly tired, I'll put it on for 2 hours. So if I'm in bed by 10, it's typically off by midnight at the latest. So I wanted to talk about that because I'm talking about marriage today and having it your way, kind of just like Burger King. Have it your way at Burger King. But we have all these ideas about how marriage is supposed to be. We grow up believing for some reason that will be magical with lots of romance and flowers. When it doesn't start out that way, we become disillusioned and fast. I think women get a lot of their ideas about marriage from fairy tales still, because most of us strive for a marriage that looks completely different than the one we grew up witnessing. If your parents had an amazing love story and you want your marriage to look exactly the same, congratulations. You had great role models. Unfortunately, most of us, and certainly speaking for myself, we did not have that kind of example. When I was growing up, my parents split when I was fairly young. I do remember a lot of fighting and tension before the official split when I was 10. A few years later, my mother married her high school sweetheart. It was a wonderful love story. They were engaged when they were young. My mother decided she wasn't ready. They split up, went on to marry other people, but came back together after both of them went through divorces. They had their prom picture on our mantle. It was like a movie, but in reality, it really wasn't. They had a good marriage, I think, but it wasn't a movie or a fairy tale scenario. There were times my mom would not speak to my stepfather for days at a time. It was actually one thing that I worked hard to, I worked hard to break when I got married. I had done that a couple of times in the beginning, and then I just thought there's just no point in this. It's just not serving either one of us for me to just stop talking. So why I felt that my marriage, the one I had looked forward to and dreamed about for so long, would be constant companionship and always having something to do, I don't know. But to this day, I still feel like I have to entertain my husband when we're home on the weekend. I feel bad if I want to go sit outside for a few hours to read in the sun and he doesn't. I feel like I need to do something that includes him. We've talked about this. He's told me many times, I can take care of myself and to not worry about it. But I still do for some reason. I have no idea how I got these ideas in my head, but there they are. Are you married? Have you ever been married? What ideas did you take into the marriage that ended up being completely different from your expectations? In what ways is it different or disappointing? We see things all the time about how much work marriage is if you want to stay together. It's true, but what works for one marriage won't necessarily work for another. You've heard people say never go to bed angry. I know many people that don't follow that creed, but still manage a long, happy marriage. Take what works for you and don't worry about what other people think or have to say. You do it the way that it works for you, as long as you both are on the same page. Now, back to the topic. There are some instances that people don't even sleep in the same room, maybe because one of them snores or one prefers to keep the TV on all night. As long as let me start over. As long as it is okay with the both of you, you do whatever works for your marriage. We all have these preconceived notions about how marriage is supposed to look. But the truth is, as long as you communicate, are open and honest, you can have any type of marriage the two of you choose. My husband does all the cooking in our house, all of it. I'm not a great cook, and he loves to do it. So he doesn't even mind doing the grocery shopping. I know the old traditional standards are fading away, and that's good. But sometimes it's hard to let go of the ideals we have in our head. When Joe is working his long hours during the week, we eat dinner separately. Another thing that's probably unusual for most marriages. I can't wait until he gets home at 7:30 to eat dinner. It's just too late for me. I tried when we first got married, and I was so hangry by the time he got home. I wasn't doing either one of us any good by waiting that long and being miserable. So I eat my dinner at my normal 5 o'clock hour. He eats dinner when he gets home. We have our separate meals. I usually make some chicken on the George Foreman grill, pop in some frozen veggies. He eats like a pot pie or some chicken he had made during the week. It works for us. So let go of some of these traditional ideals that you have in your head. Some people choose to go on separate vacations or to visit family alone. Some people have very active sex lives, while others, non-existent. This will likely change through the years regardless. But whatever you think marriage should look like, wipe it from your mind. Go in with a blank slate, open to anything and everything. I know that's hard. Talk with your spouse, though, or soon-to-be spouse, about their expectations and what they hope to get from the marriage. How do you both want your life to look? How can you both work toward that together? As with most things, comparison is the death of joy. Don't compare your marriage to anyone else's. You do what works for the both of you, and don't let anyone tell you any different. It is I Wish It Were Cocktail Friday, Thursday. One more day till the freaking weekend. Think about how your marriage looks. Do you like how it looks? Then keep on keeping on. This is a decision between you and your spouse. That's it. Nobody else. And if you're not happy with it, have some conversations. Make some adjustments. Meanwhile, go make today your best day yet.
Thank you for listening to The Hopefulist, hosted by Wendy McClure. For more inspiration, please visit Hopefulist.com. Thanks, and we'll see you tomorrow on The Hopefulist.
Oh, Ellen, now you gone and done it. You pissed Tucker off, man. She wants nothing to do with you. Unless you call, and then we'll come be on your show. Ellen, have us on your show.